I'm sick of watching white people mourn what they have within their power to change, particularly white women. No, I'm not going to celebrate you cutting off your Trump family members, neither white women nor white men. I'm not going to celebrate you for that. Whenever I tell people that you can't cut people off and expect to be able to advocate in rooms that you're not a part of, people get pissy, particularly white women. White women consistently say to themselves, oh, well, I've tried to talk to my Trump family members. I've tried to talk to them. I can't. There's no convincing them. Let me be abundantly clear about something. You expect Black people, particularly Black women, from the time that we are born till the time that we die, to advocate for ourselves against people that are trying to kill us in the same rooms in which people are trying to kill us. And that includes out of outright violence as well as ignorance. You expect us to do that from the time that we are born to the time that we die. But 10 years of Trumpism and you're out. You're out. I'm not celebrating you for that. I've been advocating in rooms against people that do not have my best interests at heart since I was a literal child. I've been in advocacy since I was a literal child because that's the only way as a disabled Black person I have any chance at succeeding and leading my life. But 10 years of Trumpism and you're gone? I've said this before, but people become further ingrained and further polarized. And then in however many years, you're going to sit here and be like, why are we so politically divided? Where did all this political divide come from? Come on. And this is like, I feel like I feel like I'm on Groundhog's Day because this is the exact same conversation had 10 years ago. You don't get to give the fuck up. Get over yourself.
I've said this before, but we do not live in the Hunger Games, and you are not Katniss Everdeen. That's because the Hunger Games was written about things that have already happened. We are not approaching dystopia. We have been living in it for a very long time. And you, as a white lady in liberal Oregon, I'm saying this as a white lady in liberal Oregon, are not going to be the face of the rebellion. And I'm not saying this to burst the bubble of anybody who's wanted to come on here in the last few days in Katniss Everdeen cosplay and say, if we burn, you burn with us. What I am saying is that we as white ladies in liberal Oregon are probably not the ones who should be saying that. We should not be centering ourselves in a conversation about an issue that is going to disproportionately and has disproportionately affected women of color. But I also think it's kind of defeatist. Right now, compared to a lot of other places in the world, we have significantly more freedoms. We are still able to use our words. We are still able to write and read. We are still able to sing. I'm not saying this to try and say that things aren't bad right now, because they are. I'm saying this because things could get a hell of a lot worse than they are right now. The vast majority of us are not going to be the Katniss Everdeens of the world. That isn't a bad thing, because for every Katniss Everdeen, there's also a Match. There's also a Peeta. There's also a Greasy Say. So much of the fates of the characters in the Hunger Games hinge on mutual aid and community, which is what we need to be doing for each other right now.
I'm sorry to break it to you, but a conservative is not a real thing. The right, someone who's leaning right, the far right, is not a real thing. What you are seeing in front of you is a white supremacist. Remember the KKK? People in the white hoods? You know that we got people living, breathing today that can tell the story of the tyranny of the KKK? Remember Jim Crow laws? Remember how they used to depict us on the news? Remember the firefighters that used to let us burn alive in buildings? If we have people, our people, still alive to tell that story, where do you think the perpetrators from these stories went? Conservative. What exactly are these people conserving? This is American history. Go back to the Civil War. Who fought in the Civil War? The Union and the Confederacy. Please tell me what the Union believed in, and please tell me what the Confederacy believed in, and please tell me if left and right are good ways to describe those ideologies. Please tell me if a Nazi walked in your country and told you the things that white people say they want to do to us. Please tell me if you would describe that Nazi as right-leaning. Right-leaning. One of the best rebrands in U.S. history is white supremacists, imperialists, colonialists, rebranding as this right oppositional political ideology. Because in reality, politics discusses things like development, GDP, economy, families, structure. This country has convinced you that their hatred for your existence is a political ideology. And you believe them. And you act like there's anything political, anything intellectual, anything logistic about their arguments and their worldview. I'll simplify for everybody. There is no political debate for somebody who doesn't believe that you don't have the right to exist. On top of that, you think the left wants anything better for you either? This is the same left that won't even look you in your eyes and address to you what this country has done to you. Because when you're in the room, you're just American and everyone's colorblind. But as soon as you leave the room, you're a dirty black immigrant, whether you black American or not. And again, a country that has ever even needed to create a distinction between an American and a black American is telling you exactly how they feel about you. There is no left-right split in this country. It is white supremacy, colonialism, imperialism, class. And on top of that, you don't need to be white to be a white supremacist. Some of y'all are as dark as me and share these same sentiments. You gotta think big, because before we are fighting groups and people, we are fighting systems and power dynamics. And until you understand that, you will never understand what is going on in American politics. Peace out.
A concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today.
But you assume, okay? Well, my mind does not assume.
I know. I want to know, what makes you two think you can play God with your body?
My question though is, what made you decide to do this? How did you know you...
Decision at all. It was always something that I knew.
I know, but why?
It's something that you have to do if you want to survive in life.
Be back.
Men will sit here and say, oh, a woman won't know how to run the country. Bitch, you don't know how to run the dishwasher. You don't know how to run soap and water through your ass crack. The only thing you know how to run is your mouth. So maybe pipe down.
Blush. Oh, this is the LYS Beauty Cream Glow Blush Stick. Look at that pigment, girl. Let's go ahead and blend her out. Exactly. Is that literally not the prettiest blush you've seen? Tisha! Girl! And I'm gonna say it again. Black women. I'm using the shade Outgoing, and don't you forget it. It is a beautiful day to support a Black woman, and let LYS Beauty be next.
Taylor Swift forced Louisiana to violate homeless people's rights. Here's what happened. Back in October, Taylor Allison was set to perform in New Orleans, but the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, didn't want any unhoused individuals ruining her show or the upcoming Super Bowl by being unhoused. I mean, imagine spending $1,000 on Taylor Swift tickets, walking up to the venue, and having to possibly look at another homeless person. So Jeff Landry started sweeping homeless camps and shipping people to other parts of town. If you don't know, encampment sweeps are usually very hostile, unproductive, and they do throw everything away. Everything. Also, homeless doesn't mean jobless. Stick with me here. 40 to 60% of unhoused individuals are employed, many of them working multiple jobs and still unhoused. So imagine having your tent where you live scooped up and thrown away. That's going to affect your ability to work. Two people are responsible for stopping these sweeps, and they're both unhoused, Raymond Scott and Amanda Alfred. They sued the state, and here's what they said. Raymond says that he makes a living by repairing bicycles, and when the officers came to do the encampment sweep, they took 3 bicycles from him and $1,500 worth of tools. And Amanda says that the officers told her that she couldn't return to the corner after the concerts were concluded. So even after Taylor Swift is out of Louisiana, these homeless people cannot return to the places that they were previously living. So because of Raymond Scott and Amanda Alfred, Judge Lori Jupiter signed a temporary restraining order because they were illegally searched and seized. That's about the end of the good news, because the order was temporary and ended on Monday. Also, there's been no update to what has happened since. Taylor Swift did donate to Second Harvest Food Bank in Louisiana, so that's nice. But when your mere presence causes governments to trample on the rights of their citizens, I don't know, a little donation doesn't wash away the very bad taste that I still have in my mouth right now.
Not to sound like really stupid, but is the Boston Marathon longer than the LA Marathon?
No, all marathons are the same length. That's like common sense, I fear.
I gave my first paycheck to my mom and dad. I'm the second youngest cousin of 30 first cousins. Every year when we gathered for Chinese New Year, it was tradition to give the younger cousins a red envelope with money in it for good luck. I always got so excited boasting the biggest stack of red envelopes at the end of the night and counting all the cash I had collected, which I would use to buy new notebooks and mystery thrillers. As a kid, I always wondered when it would be my turn to give out red envelopes. I figured it would be when I was old enough to make money too. What I didn't realize was that after I graduated from high school, I would never celebrate a Chinese New Year with my family again because I permanently moved to the US. So during my first summer internship, I got paid a stipend of about 3,000 pesos, which is about 50 US dollars. Knowing that I wasn't going to be with my parents for Chinese New Year for the first time ever, I slipped the white envelope with cash into my dad's office drawer and only told him about it after I had left for college. My family is big on gestures, so I hope that it meant something to him, but I'm not entirely sure. To me, I guess it was a small gesture of gratitude to tell them, thanks for supporting me until adulthood. Don't worry anymore, I got it from here.
My lips like sugar, my lips like sugar. This candy got you sprung, this candy got you sprung.
We don't drink alcohol or do drugs, and so it's kind of our vice. Whitney and I did ketamine.
People say that if you go to the far right or the far left, if you go far enough in either of those directions, those things become the same. Like they're both so extreme that it's just basically the same if you go far enough to either side. And it's like, yeah, okay, but the far right want to control women's bodies, exclude certain nationalities, oppress people based on their class and their race and their sexuality. And the far left, the really, really far left, are just like, we should all have the same amount of money. We should all have the same amount of opportunity. Let's all just share it. I don't know, those two things feel pretty different to me.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but being alternative does not make you less white. Calling yourself the leftist doesn't make you less white either, just by the way. Actually, and neither does being queer.
By the way, the polling on Gen Z is wrong, and I feel like you're going to walk away with the wrong lesson about Gen Z being more conservative. Yes, I encourage all the podcasts from liberal and leftist men. Yes, well, not really liberal, but leftist men. Yes, I encourage people talking to their community members about misogyny and racism. But Gen Z is not more conservative. I don't know what to tell you. First of all, polling is just a select number of people that they actually asked. It is not representative of the entire demographic. It is extrapolating data about a large group by asking a small group. Okay? That's important. I don't think Gen Z is more conservative. I think they're hopeless. I think they spend a majority of their educational career dodging bullets and having shooter drills for a majority of politicians to reduce things down to a debate. Right. Then they spent about 6 months to a year. Now, let's be honest. You didn't really have a quarantine. Okay? You had like a week and a half of you baking. There was no real quarantine. The people talk about that are wrong. But they had a good amount of time at home due to a pandemic. Right? To save the most marginalized. Only to go back to school under a different president and lose a majority of this accessibility that they got while they were learning from home, right? Like a majority of the precautions all of a sudden didn't matter anymore because it was a different president and all of a sudden the illness went away because there were vaccines and such. Spoiler alert, it never went away. It's still here. And avian flu is not far behind it. Go look it up. But then, when they got politically passionate, when they got excited, when they started organizing for themselves at college, they were brutalized. They were brutalized by their college campuses in liberal strongholds and in swing states. With the full blessing of the President of the United States, oftentimes hearkening back to images of people being brutalized during the BLM protests of 2020 under Trump. And now many of them are out of college and applying to 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 plus jobs, only to get ghosted 12 round of interviews and one offer that is below market value. If they get that, there's no promise of buying a home. There's no promise of being financially secure ever. There's this endlessly.
Here are some things to look for if your child has been sexually abused. We've discussed statistics and some resources to help possibly prevent it, but let's talk about maybe some of those behaviors that you may not have noticed. Children tend to become more distant and quiet after these things have occurred. They may seem more distracted than usual, kind of disassociating and having problems with their own memory. Many times you'll see some regressive behaviors, like children may go back to bedwetting if they've already been potty trained, or they'll want to be comforted like a baby again. Oftentimes, children's hygiene, it's going to change drastically. Sometimes they may not want to take off their clothes at all, especially when it comes to bathing. Their sleep cycles may be off, and even eating. They may not eat as often. Because children are too young to comprehend what's happened to them, but they know that it's not normal, they'll probably ask you more vague questions about games, adult behaviors, or even talking about secrets. Wanting to avoid certain places or people are also a really good indicator that something has happened. They could be showing more aggression and anger. They will probably be more clingy to you, and there will be some physiological symptoms that may occur, like stomach aches or headaches, something where they are holding on to their body. But if you observe your child and you watch them play, normally children will act out what they've had happen to them or what they've seen. Please make sure you're watching your children and ask them questions, have these conversations. Again, that's why I've been hyping up the Body Safety Wise bundle, because I think it's really important that all parents have a way to have these conversations, especially if you don't know how to start them.